Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden. We're going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up on the west coast, and we're going to revisit one of my favourite Swedish breweries, and we're finishing off a kind of three-part mini-series of reviews from this brewery, if you like. This is the third of the three beers that they released for their 15th anniversary. So for this one then we are going to go out to Landvetter once again, which is of course home to Bryggeri, and we're having a look at the 15 Stout today. So this one is a 15% Imperial Stout brewed with 15 different spices apparently, so this one should be a little bit of a monster. The other beers that I've reviewed in this series, the 15 IPA and the 15 Sour, were both really quite nice, although I will say I preferred the 15 Sour a little bit more than the 15 IPA. You know, these are the three styles that this brewery are very, very well known for. In recent times they've become really good at IPAs. For a long time they've been very good at the sour and fruit type beers as well, and their stout beers have always been really quite good. The Egypt and the Big Egypt are quite well known beers from this brewery, but this one is the strongest stout that I've ever had from them, 15%. I think the strongest I've had before that might have been like 11 or 11.5, something like that. So yeah, this beer will be an absolute monster. I think 15 different spices I think makes for a very, very interesting concoction, I think. So yeah, this is the third of the three 15th anniversary beers from Bryggeri, and as I've told you before, these guys are one of my favourite Swedish breweries and probably one of the better known Swedish breweries internationally actually. These guys were the ones who were brewing a number of the Omnipollo Imperial Stouts under contract and things like that. So yeah, this is a very, very good brewery and one that I highly recommend you check out if you get the chance, and of course a big happy 15th anniversary to these guys as well. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. I think this is going to be a little bit of a special review. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brewery before. No doubt you will see some more from these guys at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Bryggeri then, on to my brewery notes. So Bryggeri, as I've told you numerous times before, are based in Landvetter on the outskirts of Gothenburg, I believe kind of up to the northeast of the main part of the city, and you know, it's a very nice city actually. I do recommend that you go there and enjoy some nice beers. The Swedish craft beer capital, as I've told you numerous times. But the brewery itself was established back in 2005 in Mölndal, to the south of the city, by Mikael Engström Dugge. And a few years previously, Mikael had met an Englishman who was selling second-hand breweries, and this really got him thinking about brewing his own beer. So he studied the Swedish alcohol laws, which were very complex, and I think they still are complex, but nowhere near as much as they were 15 years ago. But he started visiting various breweries around Sweden, including Örebro Brygghus and also Nynäshamn Bryggeri, and he started, you know, just learning about how they actually did it. He started buying up equipment and put together his own brewery, which culminated in the opening of their first facility in Mölndal back in 2005. Over the coming years, the company continued to grow, and by 2009 they'd outgrown this original brewery, and so they moved up to Landvetter in 2010. The older brewery had a capacity of 1500 hectolitres of beer per year at its capacity, but then the new brewery started off with a capacity of 8000 hectolitres of beer per year, and this has more than doubled in recent years, and I think they are still planning to expand this further actually. But over the years these guys have become very well known for their fruit and sour beers. This was kind of where they started off. Their Imperial Stouts have always been very well respected as well. The Grand Series is what they're doing now, and in more recent times they've been experimenting a lot with IPAs. The Crush and the Fresh series are also very nice, and I forget which one of them is named after Greek letters, but they don't release too many of those through Systembolaget. If you want to try the beers from the Crush and the Fresh series, you really need to go to some of the bars in Gothenburg and get a hold of them there. But this brewery are one of the owners of the Brewers Beer Bar, which you'll find up in Gothenburg. There's 2 locations, I believe. One is on Victoriagatan, that's the newer one, and then there's also Tredje Långgatan as well, which is the original one. They own this along with All In Brewing, who are one of the numerous gypsy breweries that you'll find in the Gothenburg area, and also, I think, they also co-own it with Electric Nurse Brewery, and of course Ida and Peter, who own that brewery. Ida is Mikael Engström Dugge's daughter, and they do some very, very nice beers as well. A number of them are brewed at Dugges Brewery's facility, of course, but in recent times, because of the Dugges expansion, that has Electric Nurse have also had to brew things in other places as well. Actually, I think they've brewed some beers at Spike Brewery in recent times as well. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Dugges Brewery for the moment. These guys have produced a hell of a lot of different beers. Pretty much any style that you try from these guys will be very, very good. In my experience, that any beer that you try from Dugges, be it a barley wine, be it, you know, I don't know if I've had a tripel or something like that from them. I'm sure I've had like a quadrupel from these guys before as well. You know, whether it's a lager beer, whether it's an IPA, a stout, a sour beer, whatever, you are going to get a very good beer from Dugges in my experience. These guys are very good at a whole, you know, a diverse range of styles, and this is one of the Swedish breweries that you really do want to check out actually. So yeah, highly recommend any of the beers that you can get from Dugges. Pick a style you like and you will be in for a bit of a treat with these guys. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Dugges Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. I will say though that the number of beers they have listed on Untappd I think is inaccurate. I think as of May 2020, when I'm filming this, they've only got around I think they've only got around 70 different beers listed, but I'm sure that these guys have produced way more than that actually. So yeah, let's get on to the tasting of this one then and see how we get on. But this is definitely a Swedish brewery that you want to check out. So I'll let you have a little look at the artwork of this before we open up. As you can see, this one is very similar in its artwork to the IPA and the sour, just different colours, the 15 IPA and the 15 sour. This one of course has a nice black and orangey coloured livery to it. This one contains wheat, rye and also oats, so will be a very nice kind of oatmeal based stout. As you can see, there's a little message on the side there. There is one of the Dugges Brewery symbols, and you can see a nice plain black bottle cap on this one. The ones on the other 2 beers were gold, of course. But it says, this is 15 Stout, celebrating that Dugges in the year 2020 is turning 15 years old. We've brewed 3 very special beers. This is 15 Stout, an Imperial Stout brewed with 15 different spices. We've put vanilla, cinnamon, cocoa, cacao, tonka beans, licorice, salt, ginger, cardamom, muscovado sugar, coconut, coffee, poppy seeds, nutmeg, clove and star anise in there. The tastiest of pastries. So I guess, yeah, you probably can consider this one as a pastry stout. But at 15%, like I said, this is the strongest Imperial Stout that I've ever had from Dugges Brewery. And you know, one of my favourite things about Dugges Brewery, and I wish they would do a separate series of it, is the coffee stouts. You know, the Key and the Sidamo Dimtu. Those are 2 of the best coffee stouts I've ever come across before. So if Mikael Dugges ends up watching this review, dude, please do a separate series for coffee stouts. I really think that this is one of the things where the brewery really excels actually. They do have their grand series, and there was one recently released that was called Coffee, but you know, I think coffee stouts are a separate focus that these guys should really look at. They've done coffee stouts for a number of years since they started out, but I think they should have a separate series for these because they are really bloody good. So if you ever see a bottle of Sidamo Dimtu or Key from these guys, which I think will be quite random to find now, then that's one that I really recommend you try. 2 of my favourite beers that I've ever had from this brewery. So let's get stuck into this one and see how we get on. Oh, nearly dropped it there. Don't know how I did that, but yeah, there we go. It's alright. So yeah, 15% Imperial Stout, this one, brewed for the 15th anniversary of Dugges Brewery in Sweden. Airports and Windmills was another really good beer that I had. I'm sure it was either a barrel-aged barley wine or a barrel-aged quadrupel that had like tonka beans and things in it before. That was a collaboration with Bryggeri de Molen from down in the Netherlands actually. That's one of the best beers I've had from Dugges Brewery as well. But Key, Sidamo Dimtu, those are very nice. And then yeah, Airports and Windmills, that was a very, very nice beer as well. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as you can see, and as you would expect with this beer, it's poured a lovely dark kind of ebony rosewood colour. If I put the light through this one. It does have a little bit of a kind of Coca-Cola, very dark chestnutty coloured edge to it. You can see the head on this one has just faded away to be nothing. You would expect that from like a 15%er. You know, it's very difficult for high alcohol beers like this to maintain any level of head, but I'm surprised that this one has any transparency to it. There is a little bit just around the very kind of edge of the palate there, especially when you consider that it's got oats and wheat and rye in it. Normally you'd expect this to be a very, very kind of hazy type Imperial Stout, but this one, even though it's, you know, black as night pretty much, it does look as if it has a level of clarity to it. You can see one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up towards the kind of surface of it there too, but you know, it looks pretty much as you would expect from a big Imperial Stout. If I sugar the beer up, you can see the lacing on this one. You can see just how boozy this beer actually is. Just look at that. You can see it kind of sticking to the side of the glass there. But yeah, this one I think will be an absolute monster of a beer actually. I'm really curious to see whether the 15 spices and things all come out in this, or whether it sort of overloads the beer a little bit. The sour I think worked out really well because I could detect about, you know, 10 or so of the fruits, but I think with the IPA there was just too many hops in that one. So hopefully the stout turns out to be really nice. I've had like, you know, 12 malt stouts and things like that before, which have turned out to be very, very nice. So hopefully this one turns out to be like that. But let's take a look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. Oh yeah, this, I will say straight away, this one smells really, really very nice. So yeah, with this one you can really smell the you can smell the ginger in this. You can smell the you know, you can smell the tonka beans as well. The tonka beans are sort of laying down the base of this beer. Definitely some vanilla as well. It's hard to remember all the different things that are in this. I mean, I think they said there was cardamom in it, so you really get, for me, the sort of baseline of this, it's the cinnamon and the cardamom. These guys are really forming a kind of sort of base layer. You get this real kind of base of spice to the beer, but then on top of that you're starting to get the kind of the tonka bean notes coming out of this one. So yeah, I think the cardamom and the cinnamon are really prominent in this. Those are the first things you're going to notice. But yeah, definitely some of those nice tonka bean notes. Tonka beans, of course, are really interesting. They're very, very nutritious, those actually, but if you eat too many of them, apparently they can be like poisonous, but they've got a very addictive flavour apparently. I remember reading about those in... these guys released a beer that was, what was it called? Tonkanillo Mango Orange? Something like that. And that was my first encounter with tonka beans, and it's a beautiful ingredient to put in beer actually. You just have to wonder who discovered that. But you know, if there's a champion of putting random stuff in beer, Dugas must be within. They must be contenders for that. These guys love to put random things in beer. But yeah, you definitely get that lovely kind of tonka bean note out of it. The tonka beans almost give you the impression of vanilla actually as well. Is there vanilla in this one? Yes, there is. There is a bit of vanilla in this beer as well. So you've got the straight up vanilla coming out of this one, but you've also got the you also have the you know, the vanilla from the tonka beans themselves. So that's kind of quite interesting actually as well with this beer. But yeah, definitely some nice kind of chocolate in this one, and it's well balanced between being a sort of milkier chocolate and a kind of darker, you know, 70–80% cocoa chocolate in there as well. That's really nice how it goes together. Yeah, definitely some brown sugars in here. You get a bit of a sweet caramel out of this, but at the same time there's some toasty treacle molasses in there as well. You can definitely get a bit of that aniseedy, licoricey note coming out of it too. That sort of mixes in with the chocolate and the kind of cinnamon and cardamom. I think in fairness, this is one of these beers that goes in layers, and I've described things like this before. So in the base, you've got the cinnamon and you've got the cardamom, and I think the aniseed is kind of mixing in with that as well. On top of that, you start to get the tonka beans in there. Then you start to get some of the sweeter chocolatey elements out of the beer, a little bit of vanilla mixing in with that too, and then you get the brown sugars. I think it will be the muscovado sugar. Can't really remember exactly what muscovado sugar's like, but you do get a bit of that kind of toasty brown sugary note out of the beer, I have to say. But yeah, I like how all of this goes together. It says on the bottle here that there's a bit of ginger in this one as well, and you know, I guess maybe the ginger could be lost in with the other spices and things, but I don't notice too much of the ginger, come to think of it. I think that I think, in fairness, it's probably, I'm not too used to ginger, to be honest, so, you know, it's probably mixing in with the cinnamon and the cardamom, and I guess maybe the nutmeg that's in here as well. You will be getting all four of those, but for me that sort of spicy thing is what forms the base. The tonka beans are on top of that, you've got a bit of vanilla in there, you've got some of the chocolate, and then you've got the brown sugary layer kind of on top of that. This is one of these beers where the aroma really works in layers actually, but to me it's got a very good balance. The backbone of the beer is a little bit spicy, but you've got some nice big sweet kind of oily characters coming out of this one as well. So I really like how the aroma of this beer goes together. It is all about the adjuncts and the malts in this, of course, there's no mistaking that. But yeah, quite overall it's got quite, if we're just talking about this generally as a beer spout, if I was blind smelling this, I'd say it's, you know, it's quite spicy. It's got a little bit of licoricey, aniseedy type thing, I would say. It's got you know, a bit of that kind of spicy note, and I'd probably struggle to pick out whether it's exactly what spice it was. I probably wouldn't be able to tell you it's cinnamon or cardamom or ginger or whatever, but I'd be able to tell you there was a little bit of a kind of spicy note to this one as well. But you've got some nice chocolatey notes to the beer, a mix between the kind of high cocoa dark chocolates and the lower more milky the lower cocoa more milky type chocolates as well. But yeah, the malty and adjuncty side of this beer is just crazy, to be honest with you. On the hoppy side of things, there's a wee touch of earthiness to this one, and there's also a little bit of grassiness to the beer too. But I think mainly, you know, there's nothing really much to report on the hoppy side of things. A little bit of earthiness, a little bit of grassiness, but you do have quite a little bit of a fruity complexity to this. If this is going to have hops in it, I'd say that it's maybe a little bit of Summit or Williamette, something like that. Bramling's Cross and Northern Brewer, of course, are popular candidates as well. And the fruity side of the beer, I mean, it's got a mild sort of figgy quality to it. You've got a little bit of that kind of typical blackcurranty, blackberry type note that comes out a little bit later on as well. But yeah, this one, it really is more about those kind of spicy and big sort of malty notes. It comes across in some ways as like a very kind of cakey, candied type Imperial Stout, this one. But at 15%, this is the biggest one that I've had from Dugas before. So I think this will be a little bit of a monster actually. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. It's not very bready as well, that's the other thing. I mean, normally with the oatiness and the rye and stuff like that, and stuff you would expect to be a bit bready, but this smells like a very big oily beast of an Imperial Stout. So yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. This one is the 15 Stout, 15% Imperial Stout with 15 different spices, vanilla, cinnamon, cacao, tonka beans, licorice, salt, ginger, cardamom, muscovado sugar, coconut, coffee, poppy seeds, nutmeg, clove, and star anise in this. So yeah, there's a few there that you don't quite get, but let's see what we get out of the flavour in this one. Happy 15th anniversary once again to Dugas Bryggeri. This is the final of the 3 beers that you'll see me review for this occasion. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Yeah. Straight away I'm just going to say this is a really very nice beer, but this does take you a little bit of time to kind of get your head around. You really do feel a good bit of alcohol warmth down here from this one. I like what they've done with it though. This beer, it is good. I think in some ways, you know, I said the IPA was a little bit kind of overloaded with hops and things. The sour worked out really nicely, but there were things that you couldn't detect. This one, I think, is kind of in this, like the sour in that way. There are a few things that you're not going to get out of this, and that's just because of the sheer complexity. But in fairness, quite a number of these things that are in here have similar flavours. I mean, the anise, star anise, and you know, basic licorice, these things do taste quite similar. You know, salt stuff, it says it's got a little bit of salt in it. You're not going to detect that in the aroma, but you will detect little bits of it in the flavour. You know, there are things in this that will kind of overlap. The spices will basically merge together to give you one big kind of spicy flavour. Poppy seeds, I'm not sure exactly what flavour that will give you. I'm not a great fan of seeded bread and things like that. So yeah, but this one, as I say, as an Imperial Stout, the first impression that I have of this, it does have a little bit of a spicy aftertaste to it, but otherwise it's very smooth, very oily, and almost quite sweet. I like how this goes together, to be honest with you. So thumbs up to Dugas Bryggeri for this one. It actually reminds me, in a way, of the cake stout that I had, which was the last beer I reviewed from these guys before this 15 series. This beer is almost like a kind of Big Brother version of that, actually. So yeah, if you like a sort of more spicy Imperial Stout, then this is one that I think you are going to enjoy. For me, I do like the big coffee stouts, and I like the big sweet Imperial milk stouts and things like that. I do enjoy a more kind of roasty toasty Imperial Stout as well, but I'm not sure exactly how I feel about the spicy thing. So what I'll say is this is a good beer, but it's not quite my sort of ideal Imperial Stout, I say. But that's to take away nothing from the actual quality of this beer. This is a lovely, lovely beer, make no mistake about that. But is it my favourite one? Is it my favourite stout that I've had from Dugas? I don't think so. I think that title still either goes to Key or to Sidamo Dimtu, and of course you've got Big Egypt as well, which is a very, very high class beer in my mind. So yeah, this is an awesome, awesome stout beer. But it's definitely, this one's definitely for the people who more like spicy Imperial Stouts rather than anything else. I think if you're more a sweet head or a coffee head on the Imperial Stouts, this one might not quite tick all the boxes for you. But as a beer generally, this is very, very good quality. So keep that in mind when you're listening to my review of this one. This is spicy Imperial Stouts I'm still yet to be convinced by. But as a beer generally, this is really very nice. So again, thumbs up to Dugas Brewery for this one. But yeah, what I will say is when you take this beer in initially, it really is quite sweet. And the spiciness, it really, in fairness to that, I'm saying I'm not a great fan of spicier Imperial Stouts, but it's really in the beginning, it's actually very sweet and very smooth. It's only really in the aftertaste that you start to get some of the kind of cardamom and aniseedy and licoricey flavours pushing their way out a little bit more. So yeah, it's very, it's basically me nitpicking with this beer a little bit, to be honest, but I do like it. I'd probably have it. I would have this one as a little 100ml something. This would be a really good kind of tasting beer for me, actually. I would have this again as a taster. I think I need to sort of tune my palate a little bit more to the more spicy Imperial Stouts. But as I say, I'm a huge fan of coffee stouts, milk stouts, and the more kind of straight up Russian Imperials. But yeah, this is a good beer. So yeah, let's try and break this one down a little bit then. So what I would say is, the middle of your palate is kind of blanketed with this whole kind of spicy layer, and this will be the clove coming out, it will be the cinnamon, it will be the cardamom, and what's the other one that's in here? It's gone right out of my head now. The ginger. All of these things are kind of mixing together, and they're sort of forming the kind of baseline of the beer. As you go further into the aftertaste, you can feel the whole middle of your palate just kind of drying out a little bit, and I like how that goes together. I like how that you get this big oiliness from the beer in the beginning, but then the middle of your palate really just dries out and becomes a bit more spicy further into the flavour, which is really nice. I like how that I do like that aspect of the beer. So this one actually becomes quite a bit drier the further that you go into the aftertaste, and it's difficult to pick out exactly what spices are in this one. I've never been a big spice head, to be honest with you, so those of you who are a bit more versed in that area will be able to pick it out for me. But I think as you go towards the back of the palate, it's definitely a bit of the aniseed and the kind of licoricey quality that's coming out of this one, and I think as you move further forward, maybe it's more of the ginger and the cardamom and the cinnamon that's kind of coming out further forward as well. So I think the back of the palate, it almost gives you that kind of coldness that licorice can give you. I always find that when you taste licorice, the aniseed flavour in that, it really just makes your tongue feel a little bit cold almost, and I get that really at the back corners of the palate. So the back of the palate for me is quite spicy, and you've got all of this whole, for me, the back sort of third of the tongue is very, very spicy. Cardamom, cinnamon, licorice, aniseed, it's got all of this kind of thing going on, and that dries out the further you go into the palate. As you move further forward, maybe the first half of the kind of middle third of your tongue has got that, but you can definitely detect a little bit of the rye and kind of oaty smoothness towards the front of that middle half of your palate. On top of that, you can get some of the kind of chocolatey notes. There's definitely a big sort of high cocoa, 80-90% chocolate there, and the further you go into the aftertaste, you can kind of feel that evolving to be a little bit more milky or vanilla like. The chocolate flavour, I think, evolves a little bit as you go further into this one too. But yeah, in the beginning, when you take this in the centre of the palate, in the middle third of your tongue, you really get some lovely, the muscovado sugar comes out really nicely. It's lovely and sweet. It's not quite caramelly, of course, but the muscovado sugar has a very, very distinctive flavour. It's almost a little bit like sugar caney, but at the same time it's got the kind of consistency and sweetness of caramel. But it's a little bit more biscuity and wafery as well. But you can really feel in the very centre of your palate, the muscovado sugar for me really kind of comes out there. If you go to the front corners of your palate and move in a little bit, I think there's a few kind of nutty elements to the beer as well. There's a few kind of oaky, smooth notes underpinning this beer as well. So I really like how that goes together in this one. This is one of these beers where it's so complex, it's difficult to actually focus on the kind of one thing. I think in the middle of the palate, the tonka beans are kind of taking hold in this as well. The further you go into the aftertaste, you can feel some of that sort of beany, fibery type texture to this beer. You can really feel those in the middle of the palate. So I think in the middle third of your tongue, you've got the kind of spicy base, you've got the sort of chocolatey notes on top of that. You can feel the kind of you can feel the sort of tonka beany quality to this as well, and it gets more vanilla-like as you push further forward in that middle third of your tongue. And then you've got the kind of muscovado sugar sitting on top of that, but the muscovado sugar I think fades as you go further into the aftertaste as well. This beer is just stupidly complex. It's quite difficult to focus on any one element of it. So I hope that my review is probably going to be a bit of a ramble, to be honest with you, with this beer. But I hope that in some way it's coherent. You know, you need to split your tongue into thirds with this and just examine each individual third of the tongue and see what you get, because there's just a ridiculous amount of stuff going on in this beer. But yeah, it does, in the middle of the palate I find it quite sweet. It's a bit more spicy towards the back of the palate. The sweetness I think dissipates a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste, and then the spiciness starts to push its way out a little bit more. But there's nothing you can't take anything away from this beer. Like I said, this isn't, if I had to pick my favourite stout from Dugas Brewery, I would probably go with Key or Sedamo Dimtu. I don't think there's much doubt about that. But in terms of complexity and the quality of brewing and things, I think this has to be one of the best stouts they've brewed in terms of experimentation from Dugas. I think you have to give them credit for that. This is one of the most random things that they've brewed. Actually, I'd love to see them try like a coffee and tonka bean stout. I think that would be a really interesting thing for them to do. But the middle of the very centre of your palate in this is really very, very interesting. They've pulled it off really nicely. One of the things that I really don't get very much out of this is coconut. I'm noticing on the bottle here that it says there's coconut. Really don't get very much of that. I don't get very much of the poppy seeds either, to be honest, but again, that could be getting mixed up with all the other spicy notes that's going on in this. And I've said this about the IPA and with the sour to some degree as well. When you put so many adjuncts into the beer, as you did with the sour and with this one, and when you put so many hops into the beer, as was the case with the IPA, you might just lose a little bit of the the novelty of these things. But the fact is, it's a nice beer, and each of these will contribute to the flavour whether you notice it or not. So that's one of the things to notice about this. As a 15% Imperial Stout, it's a beast, but it's just craziness, this beer. It really, really is. I mean, we've covered the malty side of this beer quite a lot, so let's look at the hoppy side of things. Back corners of the palate, you get a little bit of earthiness. As you go further forward along the sides of the tongue there, that kind of sticks there. There's a little touch of floral quality on the front corners of the tongue. Round the front curve of the palate, it's just a little bit lighter and grassy for me. Then behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get the kind of oily bubble where the juicy, fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. And there's a little bit of complexity to this as well, actually. So when you take this in, there is a little bit of a kind of plummy juiciness. It's got a very kind of datey, kind of pruny quality. As you meet that border between the front third of your tongue and the middle third of your tongue, there is a sort of cakey element to this, a little bit like a kind of Christmas puddingy sort of thing. My dad used to love Christmas pudding on his birthdays. Crazy guy. But yeah, it reminds me that you've got this border there, you've got that bit in front of the malty part of the tongue where it just tastes a little bit almost Christmas pudding like. But then in front of that, you've got a bit of this kind of darker, pruny, datey kind of quality. You do have some nice kind of juicy figgy notes. The further you go into the aftertaste, it does become more figgy, and you've got black currants and blackberries and everything. Those kind of juicy fruity esters just roll out of the beer, and it really leans towards a kind of blackberry, black curranty side of thing for me. But you've got those pruny kind of plummy notes, datey kind of plummy notes kind of lingering in there as well. There's a few elements of sort of sultana-like flavours as well, like dried white grapes rather than just the dried red grapes as you would get with raisins. But the fruity side of this beer is pretty damn complex as well. This is just to be quite honest with you, to put it bluntly, this is a ridiculous beer that's got so much kind of going on in it. The things that I really don't get out of it are the salt, the coconut, and the poppy seeds, but everything else you can kind of see, yeah, I do get a little bit of that out of it. So yeah, you know, it's an interesting one, this, and one of the more inventive beers that I've come across from Dougas Brewery so far, so thumbs up to them for that. Mouthfeel wise, this is definitely a full-bodied beer. Carbonation is very smooth, really quite oily in its mouthfeel, very slick though at the same time. In terms of bitterness, oh, this has got to be about 60 IBUs. There is a good bit of roastiness to this beer, but at the same time, a lot of that's down to the spiciness. I don't know how you can kind of correlate spiciness with IBUs, but there is, the spiciness does give you a little bit of an almost, spiciness does give you a little bit of a kind of bitter impression of this beer, so I can't really see IBUs on this. If we're talking about some kind of relationship, I'd say about 60 IBUs related to the spiciness of this. This is a very spicy Imperial Stout in my opinion. But like I say, the malt base has a good balance between the spiciness, the sweetness, and the smoothness. There's a lot of stuff going on with this. Good little contribution from the hoppy side of things as well, and you've got a nice juicy, quite oily fruitiness out of the beer, and it's just a really quite complex one, this, that takes a little bit of time to get used to. So at 15%, this is a monster that you just need to kind of treat with respect in my mind. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the tasting side of things. I think this is a very, very interesting beer. This review, I think, has been a little bit of a ramble, to be honest with you, but when you get a beer that's got 15 different spices added to it, 15 different adjuncts, it's going to kind of turn into that, and at 15% I can feel it going to my head as well, to be honest with you. So I think this is a good time to sort of cut the review, if you like. But a very, very nice beer, this one. Definitely leaning towards the spicier end of the spectrum on the Imperial Stout scale, and definitely worth trying if you are a fan of this brewery. I'm not sure for me that it tops the Key and the Sidamo Dim2, but a very, very good beer nonetheless. So give it a go and see what you think. So yeah, once again, happy 15th anniversary to Dougas Brewery. This is a very, very interesting beer, and I would recommend that you try the 3 in this mini-series. The 15 IPA, the 15 Sour, and the 15 Stout. If you had to ask me the question, which did I enjoy most, I think probably the 15 Sour, to be honest with you. That's probably my favourite of the 3 beers in this mini-series. But all 3 are very nice, and I would recommend you try all of them for yourself and see what you think. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Dougas Brewery. Let me know what your favourite beer was from this kind of 15th anniversary mini-series as well. That would be interesting to hear. But thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. This is the 15 Stout, a 15% Imperial Stout with 15 different spices in it from Dougas Brewery in Landvetter, just outside of Gothenburg on the west coast of Sweden, the Swedish craft beer capital. Slange, skål, cheers, catch you tomorrow with another beer review.